Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon for you and good evening for me.
Right. Good morning still for me. Not afternoon yet.
Nice. So thank you for accepting my invitation and coming to talk with me.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. My name is Tammy Vreeland. I'm an author. I've written 8 books in the horror genre. I've written 6 books in children's series. And I also write a magazine article for Rochester Woman Online as well as Central New York Woman Online.
Okay. So you write books on all the genres.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I started in the horror genre. That was my favorite. I
Okay.
grew up in a small town in Indiana. Right now, I live in New Jersey in the United States. But I came from a very small town and I loved horror. Everything that had to do with anything horror related was
Mhm.
fun. It was exciting. It was it was different than what, you had your surroundings and everything. So as I grew up, I wanted to write horror. Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, was my inspiration. She was the first book I ever read. And I really enjoyed the way that it was not only a scary book, but it was also a book written by a woman. And that means a lot to me because there's not too many women that write horror novels, and it's definitely a genre that we all can get into and enjoy.
This is the first time I'm talking with the author who writes about horror.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, horror, a lot of people are kind of put off by the horror genre. They think that it's um not a real genre when it comes to a technique. But a lot of my friends who've never read horror before, once they've read one of my stories, they really enjoyed it. And they don't realize that when you write horror, it has a multiple genres. It has romance, it has
Yeah.
thrills, it has mystery, and it has humor,
Yeah.
So you have to incorporate all of that. And I think the horror genre is even a little bit harder to write because I have to try to scare you with
Yeah.
words. I
Yeah.
can't use anything visual. So,
Yeah.
as I'm building up the moment to scare you, how do I go about doing that? And that's a challenge.
How many people got intimidated after seeing or after reading your book?
I Some of them, especially if they haven't read the first, if they're not used to reading horror, they can be scared. To me, they're not scary because I'm used to scary things, so I'm kind of numb to how scared I could be. But for the most part, I like to leave you with a sleepless night, one or two.
So, what is your inspiration to write this genre? To write about this
The
genre?
I think it is to just be able to take people out of their everyday living and enjoy something that, once you've read the book, you're like, okay, well, what I have to deal with every day is not as bad as what those characters in the book had to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
it's nice to be scared, but it's also nice to go back to the comfort of your home and know you're safe. So it takes you away.
So, you want to be scared or you want to scare people?
I like both. I love to be scared, but I'm not very scared at all. But I do like scaring people. I think it's fun. So,
Okay. So, why you connected only with the fear? Why not with other emotions?
um, the fear is it gives you adrenaline. It gives you excitement. Where if you read romance, it can make you sad, or you read humor, it can make you happy. So you have a lot of emotions that can go into the horror genre. So it's just something different.
So, people call fear as a negative emotion. What do you say about this?
They do what?
People call fear as a negative emotion.
I don't think so. I think it's a way to conquer something. I think that sometimes you have that flight or, fear of staying. So when you think of fear as a negativity, you don't need to. That's when your body is the most alive. That's when you realize that, I want to live. I want to excel, and that fear gives you that feeling of, all right, I'm alive and I'm going to keep alive. So it's a good thing.
So can I say you're fearless because you know about fear? You
I
understand
think
fear?
so. I like to think so. I ride a motorcycle. I love riding motorcycles. I like doing a lot of things. I'm getting a little too old to do some of the things I used to do, but yeah, I like to say I'm kind of fearless.
Are you scared of ghosts?
That's one of my biggest questions when it comes to my writing, and um, I'm not a religious person, and I have to admit I'm probably the biggest hypocrite to write about ghosts and not believe in a religion so much. So that makes me a hypocrite, and I admit that. However, I do admit that there are things that happen in life that we can't explain. So I would say that I am very cautious. I do not put myself into situations where I could be confronted in a situation where the unknown is not to be messed with. I have respect. I want to make sure I would never do the Ouija board. I would never stay a night in the haunted house. And it's not that I don't believe in it. It's just that I'm not going to, in case it is, I'm not going to, disrespect it.
So what are the things that you use to create a emotion called fear in the people who reads your book?
A lot of my dreams are my inspiration, believe it or not. I will come across that. I have unusual nightmares, severe nightmares sometimes. So in the middle of the night, I get up and I write them down. And then
Okay.
I think about them the next couple of days, and I think, well, that'd be a good story. And it's always easier to write about something you know. And writing horror, of course, you're not going to know how to kill somebody, or you're not going to know how to be killed. So, but your dreams are something that you do experience, and that's something you can write about. So when people say it's easier to write something than it definitely, if you've dreamed it, then you've experienced it, and it's something you can portray in your writings.
Insecurities and fear both are interconnected.
I do think so. I mean, you have your different types of fear. So if let's say if you have phobias where people do not want to walk out the side of the house, or they're afraid of heights, that's a fear that causes insecurity. Whereas, you have a serial killer that's killing you, that's a little different. So you have so many different ideas and different ways of portraying and in my stories, you will find that every one of my books is different from the book before it.
Okay.
I try to approach the supernatural. I try to approach serial killers. I'm not a person that really likes the slasher. I'm more like the paranormal. But I grew up on Alfred Hitchcock, love Alfred Hitchcock. And so I like to portray a story that makes you be able to relate. One of my favorite questions from an interview is, what is your favorite scary movie? And it surprises people because my favorite movie is Jaws. And you would think, why in the world would you want, to say that Jaws is your favorite movie? And to me, that is your biggest fear factor, because you can't tell me that anybody out there right now hasn't experienced that fear of being in the ocean or even in the lake or swimming pool or whatever, and you hear that music and you think, oh my gosh, there's, something might be below me. And so Jaws was such Peter Benchley was an amazing writer because he made you feel like you were part of the story and you have that fear factor for the rest of your life. So I try to strive in my books to have a fear factor where you can relate to it. This might happen to you someday. And oh my gosh, I remember reading about this in a book. How scary is this? That's what I'm looking for.
Death is most unknown thing for a human being. I think he'll be scared most of the time because of this. Unknown things makes a human to feel fear. So, have you wrote about a book which consists of this thing, the death?
Have I written about what?
Death.
Death. Oh yes. I mean that's your biggest unknown, and I
Yeah.
think that's with as many different religions there are out there, everybody has a different thinking of how what's going to happen once you die, and I respect that. I actually appreciate the different types of religions because it's very interesting to see how in some cultures people celebrate death, and in other cultures they fear death. Why is there a difference? Just because you're in part of your country and I'm in the part of my country, why do we view death differently? We should all view it the same. And because it's an unknown, that's why we all view it differently, because we don't know.
The geography of the house is very important for a person who is creating a emotion called fear, and for the genre called horror.
Right. I think that different cultures have different ways. I mean, you look at, I mean, even in the United States, if you go to like New Orleans, you have the voodoo, you know,
Okay.
and then if you go like New Jersey has the New Jersey Devil, which is a monster, So there are different types of fear, even in the United States, in different states versus all over the world, which is interesting because whenever I travel, I always ask somebody, do you have something that's scary that happened to you? Because I love to hear about it, and then maybe I can write about it later.
So, where do you sit while writing these stories?
I just in my office, and I just after having the dream or whatever, I usually don't write until the fall. I take the summer off and enjoy whatever I can. But fall's the best time because the time is changing for us. The leaves are falling. The skies are dark and gray, and you just feel like you're in the mood to write something scary. When I wrote my children's book, I wrote it in the spring, which was better because, it's springtime, everybody's happy and go lucky. And that was definitely a challenge for me to go from the horror genre to the children's series, but it was one I really enjoyed. So it was good.
Why you want to fear people?
I want them to realize how good they have it. I want them to, if you're depressed and you feel really bad about your life, and you pick up one of my books and you're reading it, and you're captured, and you're in my story, and you just like, you can relate to the characters, and these characters survived, there's something horrible, or perhaps maybe they didn't survive, whatever the case. But when you close that book, your life is much better. You live, your life isn't as bad as, like I said, the people in the book. So,
Until unless you feel emotion intensely, I don't think you can express or you can explain in a way so that people can fear, or people can feel the same that you are feeling. Until
right.
unless you feel it
Exactly.
strongly.
And that's true. I mean, and that's where the writer in you comes in. Before I became a writer, I was an avid reader. I read everything that I could get my hands on when it became horror genre. And the same with movies and TV shows. I watch all the scary things that I can see possibly. And I kind of, I'm, like I said, I'm numb to the fact. So I kind of see what the reaction is to other people, because other people get scared easier. So I want to see how that reaction works for them, because like you said, until you experience it, you're not going to know how to truly describe it. So,
So whenever I go to a movie, a horror genre, a movie, with my friends, if I say it, and if the visuals makes us to feel fear, for me, their expressions are more entertaining than the movie that I'm
It
seeing.
is. I love having a full theater with a lot of girls screaming. It's the best because it like, yeah, this is fun. I love hearing these. They're screaming, they're jumping, and it's hilarious. I get the biggest kick out of it. So it's a good
Wow.
thing.
I
Yeah.
think you're completely different from all the people I met in my life. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's so good or not, but hopefully
Yeah.
it will be.
I have a doubt. I have a doubt. Why fear and why the ghost will be men, will be women all the time? Why not men?
Ghosts?
Yeah,
So
ghosts.
you
Yeah,
think ghosts are only women, not men?
yeah. Most of the ghosts will be women, and in a lot of movies, women's creates more impact than men. Men ghosts.
Well, I guess women have more vengeance. I guess we don't rest as easily, so maybe that's why. I don't know. I never really thought of that. That's a very good question because when you do think about it, a lot of them are women ghosts. The woman in white is a very, very prime example. A lot of times, I don't know, maybe women feel more. My feeling is, let's take, for example, in a lot of my books, I kind of use the example of a ghost leaving an impression. I think that we all are made up of energy, and I think that maybe we leave a fingerprint. And maybe, and this is just theoretically thinking, this is just my thoughts, but perhaps the ghost has more energy because it's at unrest. It's not content with being dead, whatever the case. So that energy is like playing a loop, it over and over again, and or it's trying to reach out, or whatever the case may be. Like you said, it's an unknown. So, but it's scary. There's a lot of things that can happen. In my first book, The Folks, my son had imaginary friends in a house that we had bought, and some strange things happened in the house. Nothing overly, not like Amityville horror, but strange enough. And that's what I based the book about. And it'll put chills on you because some of the things are real, and you think, why did they happen? And who knows? I was able to put a story to it just because I wanted to answer the story, but who knows? Who knows why it is? If you look at a lot of the Chinese, I was just actually watching one on Netflix last night. Yan Wan, the Grudge series is on Netflix. It's all woman, it's a woman related, but then there's some men in there too. So they threw some men in there. You don't get off the hook that easily.
Personally, who creates impact in you, men or women, when it comes to fear?
Um, oh, I think a woman is more scary. I think they're more diabolical. I think they think things through more. Men are more violent, but a woman is scheming and figuring out different
Uh,
ways. I think there's a lot of women who probably have committed murder that never got caught just because they thought it through, where a man's emotions take over, they get angry, they, in the heat of the moment kind of thing, where a woman, she can stay mad for years and you would never know it.
how do you explain the scream in your book while writing?
The scream?
Yeah.
Um, I build it up so that you feel like you're going to, a lot of times, that's why I don't explain a lot in my books. I let you figure it out. I let
Okay.
you do the feelings. I think a lot of writers don't give readers credit because you have an imagination. Every reader has a beautiful imagination. So I don't describe a lot. I'm not the type of person who writes about the pink fluffy cloud in the sky floating by. I write about the person and what is happening. So an example in one of my in the first book, The Folks, a lot of people who've read the first book was like, I identify with this one character so much because it's exactly like my neighbor, or it's exactly like my boyfriend, or it's exactly like, and I always ask them, well, why are they, how do you describe that person? And every time they describe that person, it's completely different from the person that I had in mind when I wrote the story. And why do you think that is? And it's because I wanted you to be able to identify with that person. I didn't want to, corner you into thinking that this person has black hair, blue eyes, is 6'2". I want you to relate. Maybe you don't know somebody like that. Maybe you know somebody different that has the same mannerism. So writers need to keep that in mind. They need to realize that readers have an imagination and they can use that. And they don't have to describe everything. Let the reader figure it out.
Loss of relationship, and loss of money, or loss of identity. I think these three things are the things which makes human to feel fear.
Of course, of course. And it goes back to what you were saying about insecurity.
Yeah.
They are insecure, so they're afraid. So a lot of your horror genre is nothing but fear of the person who's committing the act, because I do find serial killers are interesting because a lot of them don't have empathy, or they don't feel for their victims. That's scary, because when you meet somebody, if you smile at them, you'll return the smile back because that's empathy. But if you meet a serial killer who doesn't have empathy, he's not going to smile at you. And that's scary because he's missing something there. And that's not something, and that's your unknown. That's something that is fear.
Okay. I think you have a lot of information about this.
I do. I've been doing it for a while, so. And
How old
I
are
think
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
How old are you?
I am 54, so
Okay.
I'm getting old up there. Too old.
No, actually, you're becoming old, and you're making people more scary with your writings, because it is very good for people to uh, uh, feel fear more, because you will have a great imagination, because you are imagining since a long time. So
Right. And I think the older you get, you don't care. You're not so worried about what you think. I'm going to
okay,
write it anyway. And that's what I tell all new writers. When you first start writing, you write because you want to. At the end of the day, you're looking in the mirror at yourself, and you're going to be your worst critic. Every time you look at it, if you look at your writing and everything, it doesn't matter what everybody thinks. It's at the end of the day what you think of yourself. And when I look in the mirror, I'm pretty proud of where I am right now with the books that I've written, with the children's books that I've written, and the magazine article. I smile at the end of the day because I know I did it. Nobody else may be happy with it, but I'm happy with it, and that's what matters. And the older you get, you realize that's who's the most important, is yourself. You have to be happy with yourself. So,
so you love dark more than light.
not really, because my children's series helped me kind of balance. I never thought that I would write anything but dark. Um, but then when I did write, I wrote it for a charity, and it was very exciting. It was something different, and I actually wrote a scary book for the children, spooky versus scary, so that it kind of introduces them into being scared. When I had my two children, my two boys, we used to watch scary movies all the time, and we used to watch, I would read scary stories to them and everything, and I taught them to embrace fear. They grew up not being afraid. If they had a nightmare, we discussed it and we talked about it and thought, what could we make to make a story out of it. So it was a way for them to conquer their fear, and I kind of wanted to do that with my children's series. And then with the magazine article, I get to talk about anything and everything. So I get that balance, So one day I want to write dark, I can, and then another day I can write happy. So you do have to have a balance. It can't be just dark all the time. And this has been giving me a really good opportunity to branch out, because you can use your writings, your different types of writings in everything. So in the horror genre, I can use the good. You have good in the horror genre too. You have your good cop, bad cop. So
Hmm.
you have to be able to write good things it's not always all bad. So that's what makes it real, because if you're reading my story and you see that there's a good person in that story, that makes it even worse, because you don't want anything to happen to that good person. So you have to have both.
So to explain the fear, you have to explain all of the emotions.
Yes, yes, I think so. And always with a good scary movie or a scary book, there's humor in it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to have a little bit of humor, because you got to laugh at life. You
yeah.
can't go through life and be terrified or be upset all the time. Sometimes you just got to laugh, and you got to put that in your writings. You have to make that part of it. So yeah, you have your comedy, you have your humor, and your terror and your fear, and then you throw romance in it. It's all well rounded, very well rounded.
I think humor and fear are both very close. I
I do
think.
too. I agree. I think there's that fine line where you don't know whether to scream or cry, or
Yeah,
or just be, like, I don't know. It's that adrenaline inside you, and that's what makes you feel good, though. When you watch a good scary movie, or you read a good scary book and you walk away, you feel good. That's that smile, but in the meanwhile, you were
yeah,
terrified
yeah,
early,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that's a good thing. So,
Yeah, why people laugh when it is very scary, to
yeah.
show others that they are not fearing.
Exactly. And it comforts you. If you laugh yourself, you're like, oh no, it's no big deal. In the meanwhile, you're like
Yeah,
terrified on the
yeah,
inside. But yeah, and as a man, it's a macho thing. Oh, I'm going to show my friends I'm not scared.
yeah.
But it, like you said, it's a fine line.
Do you take the feedback seriously?
I try not to. I used to be very upset. To be a writer, you have to be thick-skinned. You have to just not worry about the social media and the social aspect. Um, People tend to express negativity quicker than they will a
Yeah,
compliment. And that's frustrating, because, you put your life on the line. You're putting your heart and soul into these writings. And, when somebody looks at it and says, oh, I could have done better, or I wouldn't have done that. And it's like, it's not your story. It's my story.
yes.
And so, my story, so I have to be happy with myself. So yeah, you may not appreciate, and that's why I try to write differently. My White Noise Stories collection, I decided to do short stories only because I thought, well, there's a lot of different people out there that may not like ghosts, but they like serial killers. They may not like serial killers, but they may like something else. So if I do a variety, maybe one of those stories in that short collection you're going to like. So you can't please everybody all the time, but you can try, and that's what I try to do I keep it different, but I also, at the end of the day, the story's for me. It's not for you. It's for me. And if you like it, that's great, and if it sells, that's even better, but it doesn't matter. It's for me.
So the people who are connected to you will definitely, will be interacting with you in a different way than they interact with other people. Because horror is a genre, fear is something which, I mean, most of the people don't want to be scared, but that actually, it is a thrilling experience when they feel fear. It is very important. It is very important for a human to have fear, and
It
he will
is.
have, yeah,
It is, and I do book signings at a horror con. And we have it in the New Jersey Horror Con in Atlantic City, and it's like a family, because people come from all over, and they want to meet these people who've written horror. They want to talk to you, and they want to, why did you write this? Why did you, and it's interesting, because They want to put a reason to it. You always want to have a reason for your fear, but sometimes there is no reason. It's just, it's unknown. So
So you don't have fears, but you write fear.
exactly. That's exactly it. I wish I did. When I was younger, I'm way younger. I had the fear, but not anymore. And nothing really has scared me in a long time. So I don't know.
So you're understanding fear, and you're using that emotion to create in humans who reads your book.
Yes, that's my
Okay.
job.
Okay. So I have the last question to you. Logic and emotion. Can you tell the difference?
Oh, most definitely. But I do think logic can be interpreted differently by different people. Back to your serial killer, a person who thinks logically and who has no empathy, is going to be completely different from somebody who has emotion. So, you can have both, and you can be too logical and you can be too emotional, but you've got to find the balance between the two of them.
What you
That,
are?
what am I? Um, I think I'm more logical than I am emotional. I tend to look at things logically to try to get an answer. And I think that's maybe why I'm not so fearful, because I look at it logically. If I heard a noise in the other room, it's probably a book that fell. The window was probably open. I'm too logical thinking. I'm not going to automatically think it's a ghost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my thing is that I think it through. I would definitely think it through before I got too emotional, hopefully. But there's
Uh,
always those moments you never know for sure.
so you are too logical. That is why the reason you understood the emotion called fear better than the people who are, feeling fear. And
I think so.
you wanted to make them more scared with your words.
Yes, yes. I just want them to embrace the fear. I want them to maybe really think about it. If you're going to be scared about it, maybe you should start thinking about it.
Okay. That is a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. So do you have anything to say to the world who watches this video?
Not at all. I just really appreciate everything that you're doing. It's very interesting to see all the different people that you have interviewed all over the world. And one of my favorite sayings is on the Instagram is a book is a dream you can hold, and that was by the creator of Coraline. And it's true. When you pick up a book to read, that was somebody's dream. And so my books are my dreams. And I'd love to share them for everybody to enjoy and to appreciate. And don't always think horror is a bad thing. Give it a chance, see if you like it, and it might surprise you.
Nice. So tell me about your books so that people can search and they can buy it.
Okay, The Folks is like I said, my son had imaginary friends, and he called them The Folks. So that's a story about imaginary friends. Sea of Souls I wrote quite a bit later, but it was a sequel to The Folks. And so he's older and he's in the Coast Guard, and the folks come back. Taylor is a good story if you've ever read or seen the movie The Bad Seed from Alfred Hitchcock. It's about a serial killer, female serial killer. So Taylor the Tailor is quite interesting. Transporter of Souls was a very interesting one. That was my fear factor for Jaws. Um, when I first met my husband, he was picking up cars that people had died in. He was a transporter. And so when I first met him, I used to go with him in the truck to pick up these cars that people died in. And it was a perfect background to a story of mine. And so whenever you go to buy a used car, hopefully you'll think twice about it when you read my book, because it'll have that Jaws effect for you. Class reunion, I have a very big following for Class Reunion. It's not one of my favorite books. It's a slasher book. I only wrote it because I was having a class reunion and my girls wanted me to write a story and I had to kill them all off. So it was interesting. The family tree is about Druidism and it's a little controversial. But the White Noise story is what I'm working on right now. Volume 1 and 2 is out. I'm working on the third one. It's short story collection, so it's nice. It's only like 10 pages each story. There's 13 stories in each one. So I'm very excited about the White Noise collection. And then my children's series, if you're all interested in the children's aspect, the children's book is called Unseen Beauty series, and I wanted to explain to children that there's unseen beauty in the world. They may not know it, they may not see it. So the series works on showing them the unseen beauty, not only in the world, but in themselves as well. So there's 6 books in that. And then my monthly magazine article is in the Rochester and Central New York magazine. And it's just a daily, it's just a monthly thing about monthly national holidays because there's a national holiday in the United States every day. So it's a way for you to celebrate. So it's a way for you to celebrate life and enjoy life, you know. So grasp it and enjoy it. Be afraid, be happy. It doesn't matter. Just have those emotions and enjoy each other.
Fear and smile.
Yeah, yes, that's it.
This is a good end. Thank you so much for giving your time to me and allowing me to ask you questions based on your favorite genre.
The age kind of threw me. I wasn't too happy about throwing that out there on how old I am, but that's okay because it's you. No, but we won't tell anybody else, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
It
just
was good.
wanted to know. Yeah, I just wanted to know what actually is making you to, you know, stick to this particular genre. So that's
Right.
why the reason I asked you.
That's all right. No problem. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It was a very good conversation. You're very intelligent, and it was worth. You make a worthy opponent. You know. So, do you like horror yourself or not?
Yeah,
You do.
I love horror. That's why the reason I
Good.
have a lot of questions.
Now, how about yourself? Have you ever written horror?
No, I didn't written
No.
horror, but I respect people who writes horror, who shows horror, who makes people to feel scared. I want to know their mindset, how they think, how they see things, how they
Right.
create things. Unless they feel like very personal, they can't create that kind of and fear is not an emotion that anybody can create. Any writer can create. It is very strong emotion. I think fear is the
It is, and I it's frustrating because so many scary movies out today they rely on the scenery or the effects to be able to scare you, the pop-ups. You can't have that in a book. I can't scare you by popping up at you and scaring you. So the words, it's challenging to try to take you to that place and make you realize that you're going to be scared, when you read this chapter, or you're going to turn the light on, hopefully,
yeah.
when you're done.
Without seeing a visual, you are creating effect. I think that is something which everybody should think. For watching this video, you're not showing anything, but you're making them to involve in your imagination.
Right, right. Oh, I believe me, I would love to be able to open up my mind and let you see some of my nightmares because they would truly scare you. So, I don't do them justice when it comes to writing but each time I try a little bit harder and I get it. Eventually one day there'll be such an amazing scary story that it'll all be all over the world, right?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I'll be waiting for that. I'll be the first one to know and hear and read that book. Yeah.
That would be cool. Very
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you again. And can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yes, you may. I'd be most honored.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. All right. And we are done.
Yeah, we are
Uh,
done. Yeah.
Okay, take
Yeah.
care.
Take
All
care.
right,
Yeah.
bye bye.
Bye.